Hi, Kenny. Good to have you here. I think you're on mute if you're speaking. Hey.
Hello, just a moment. Hi, I struggled for a little bit to get the link, and I had to log back into his Instagram to see if it's there because I'd sent an email asking for the link, but it's all good.
That's fine. I mean, you're still control. So
Yes.
this
Yeah. Anita, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Same here. Same here. I think I met you once at was it Cocopelli?
Okay, yeah. Yes, because I had I've done some work with
Yeah.
Mary Herald and the gallery itself. Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just wait for 6 p.m. and then we'll
Okay.
begin.
Yeah, she just sent it. I already got it.
How's the weather over there?
I mean, it's fall now, so it's a little chilly, but it alternates, which is like the classic San Diego weather. So if you're going out, you have to just have like a small outer jacket or something like this,
Yeah.
because one moment it's like all bright and sunny, and the next moment it's
Cold.
cold. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a typical fall weather. You're just very uncertain
Yep.
about what's to come.
Mhm. Mhm. I should put a big note on my door for nobody to knock.
Hi, Paul. Good to have you here.
Hello. Think it's my setting or what? I can't seem to see anybody apart from you. So
Really? Okay, maybe it's the settings, or maybe it's because I'm speaking.
yeah, probably. Trying to find a way to undo that.
That's fine. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you.
Wait, you were talking to someone the first time I logged in here. Now it's just you.
So I was talking with Kenny. Um,
Oh,
yeah, she's on the call as well. Kenny, can you hear Promise?
Good evening.
Can you hear
Promise.
Promise?
I can
good.
hear him now. Yeah.
Wait, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Well, I can't see myself.
Oh yeah?
Have to do now.
But can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see you. Just you now. When Kenny was talking there, it was just hard. But
Okay, but how about the screen?
yeah, I can see the navigating successful artists.
Okay. Okay. Maybe it's probably your settings.
Oh, got that now.
Yeah.
So
So,
oh, who are we waiting for?
so we have 10 minutes wait time just for people to join in, and we'll begin exactly 6:10 or 1:10, wherever your location is. Promise, are you in Nigeria at the moment?
No, I'm not in Nigeria.
Okay, so your time is probably 6 past 6.
Yes, it's 6. It's 6 right now. Yeah. It's 6
So
on the
just
dot.
minutes time just so we're also waiting for other panelists to join.
I'm here.
And
I am
oh, hi
here.
Chef, thanks for joining us. How are you
Good
today?
evening, everybody. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, good evening.
Hello,
Promise,
Chef.
see this your
Yeah.
hat and your jacket. You just want us to know you're in the abroad. Are you not warm?
I'm
How
not
now? Good
home.
to see you.
Yeah, but
I'll
I'm not
turn
seeing
on my
the
video in a minute. Let me just,
Sure.
if we're starting at 6:10, I'll
Yes.
turn on my video.
Yeah, that's fine.
Penny Love, how are you?
Hey, Shayon.
Welcome.
Hi. It's so good to
On second.
be here.
Yes, so same here. Thank you
How
for
is
all for being on time. Small something. We're always on time.
it? Oh, well.
Okay, I'm going to turn off my mic, but I'm here anyway.
All right.
Anita, so how is this, before we start, how's this going to go?
Okay, so I'll just give you a run through while we're waiting for Chinyere, who is the final panelist. So I currently have a slide of basically what we're going to talk about today. So I'll go through them. It's about 5 slides, after which I would do a brief introduction of the panelists and then ask questions to the panelists, and afterwards it will be open up for question and answers. So it's going to be roughly 1 hour, 30 minutes. But now we have like 10 minutes lag. It might go up to 1 hour, 45 minutes. Is that okay? You're on mute, Promise.
Yeah, okay, so the problem is I forgot my charger, so I don't think my power will last 5 minutes.
How many minutes do you have now?
How many minutes?
Like how long can it last? Like
It can
your
last
system?
for an hour, maybe
Oh,
an
that's
hour.
fine.
Yeah,
So we can see how wherever it stops is fine. I
okay.
mean, 1 hour should cover the basic discussion or the important one. Yeah. Hi, Tina. Thanks for joining us.
So thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. So we're just waiting for more participants or listeners. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Mm. Okay, I think we can begin now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this time. My name is Anita Naji, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Today, we will be talking about navigating success for artists, curators, and galleries. This session is hosted by the Jade Art Collectives Limited. So I'll just go through a couple of slides just so that we can have like an overview of today's discussion. So here we have, should curators charge artists a fee for their for curating their exhibitions? This is one of the important discussions, especially for artists who are emerging, who do not have proper funds, and there are different, we all know, or rather, if we do not know, there are different models for where curators or exhibitions are being done. Like there are different approaches. We have standard model where the gallery typically takes all the costs for the exhibition from pre-production to post-production. All the artist needs to do is just to provide the artwork. And then the curator, at the end of the day, the gallery pays the curator a fee and also remits profit to the artist. Here, the gallery takes, if not all, the expenses for creating an exhibition. Second model we have is where the artist pays. So here is quite a controversial topic where artists are being made to pay for their exhibition. They take care of logistics, take care of installation, everything, because they want to have, like, they want to be seen out there. But if an emerging artist is paying for their exhibition, I personally think is not a good take, but people also go through this approach in curating art exhibitions. Also have the grants and funding where funds are raised from external, parties. We have where, like, we have banks who are invested in art. So funds are being raised from them where they sponsor everything. In this model, the curator nor the artist do not incur any fees. And at the end of the day, they also share, like, the profit from the exhibition. Finally, we have the artist-run spaces where artists curate their own exhibition. They take care of the cost. They take care of everything involved in curating an art exhibition. I think one we have where artists just do like studio exhibitions in their studio. They just invite people to come and provide refreshments. And also at the end of the day, they take all the proceeds from the sales that they get from the exhibition. Now, for those who have or use the first three models, what are the considerations when charging fees as a curator to artists? When a curator does a fee, like, there are several factors that should be considered: value, transparency, and fairness. Where when we talk of value, the curator should be able to provide value for the charges they give the artist, where there should be, good audience who come to buy the art. They take care of marketing, promotions, and also the space where the exhibition is being held. And then transparency, fees and commissions should be clear. Do you sign contracts? Do you have any agreements where it's being written down, not just word of mouth? What should the artist expect from this exhibition? And so on. We'll talk about this more later in the discussion. And then we'll have fairness, like, what are you charging? Is it fair enough for the artist? And how can the artist also benefit from this exhibition aside sales? Because most exhibition is not all exhibition are about sales, right? So sometimes it can be for exposure, cultural purposes, and all. So just let me know if you have questions. You can drop them in the chat box. And then for ethical considerations, the ethical implication of charging artists fees are debated in the art world. Some critics argue that charging fees exploit artists who may already be struggling financially, and others argue that it can provide opportunities for exposure and career development for artists who may have access to traditional gallery spaces. Now, this discussion is not like a one-size-fits-all, because at the end of the day, it comes down to your agreements with either the gallery as a curator, the artist, and everyone involved in the production of a successful art exhibition. Before we go on, I would like to introduce our panelists today. Today we have 4 panelists who will be discussing or answering questions concerning this topic. Firstly, we have Kehinde Ekundayo. Kehinde is also known as Kenny. She is a renowned curator who is based in Lagos and San Diego. She specializes in modern and contemporary African art. She notably curated an exhibition on the artist Bruce Onagbapea at the San Diego State University. Kehinde collaborates with both iconic and emerging African creatives like Wole Soyinka and Ken Wandiobu. She's passionate about her African creativity. Her diverse work spans exhibitions, documentaries, and research. Her works have been, showed on notably national channels like CNN. It has been published in the Guardian newspaper. She's currently the communications officer for the Committee for Relevant Art and is integral to the Lagos Book and Art Festival organizing team. Kenny is the head curator at Gallery Odumide and is affiliated to San Diego State University. She's also studying her master's in arts in liberal arts at the San Diego State University. Hi, Kenny. Kenny, are you on the call?
Hello.
Okay. I just wanted everyone to see you. All right. Move on to Promise Onali, who is a visionary artist. He paints portals, vibrant gateways into profound terrains of identity, politics, and the ceaseless journey towards consciousness expansion. His canvas is a dance floor where colors, brushstrokes, and compositions waltz, tango, and jive. Hi, Promise. Good to have you on our panel.
My pleasure.
Okay. And then we have Shemu Ali, who is a lawyer, art broker, curator, facilitator, public speaker, and administrator based in Lagos, Nigeria. Shemu is the founder and director of June Creative Art Advisory, which is a multi-service art advisory firm that provides customized and specialized support for artists, collectors, and brands. Hi, Shemu. Good to have you here as well.
Hello, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
And our last panelist is Chinyere Akachukwu. Chinyere is a practicing lawyer and a contemporary artist living in and working in Lagos, Nigeria. She has exhibited in various platforms, both solo and group exhibitions. Some of her exhibitions have also been aired on national TV. Chinyere, it's good to have you here.
Thank you, Anita. It's good to be here.
Okay. So are you guys ready for the discussion? What do you think about the topic we have today? Anyone can take this.
Lady first.
Start. So when I first saw the description of the webinar, I was shocked and mildly, I don't want to say outraged, but something around that. Because first of all, what's the cadre of the curators, for example, that you're relating your questions to? Are they independent curators or curators who are already, within institutions that back their work? Who exactly, where are these curators? I guess because much of, the art industry or the market itself has been like processes of doing business itself have sort of they've become into a nearly solely profit making scheme. It becomes difficult to place people who are not exactly after profit, but they are just also trying to make ends meet. If you ask me, do I charge? Yes. It's like Yes, I charge. If you say, Kenny, you want to talk to me about the work, you're going to pay me my consultation fee, because I'm not going to sit down for 3 hours and I'm, discussing any and everything with you. And then I go back home and I see the stacks of bills on my table waiting for me. And I'm calling myself a curator. So how do I get those bills paid?
Yeah.
In as much as, yeah, we are talking about creating platforms for artists and other such spaces to um, push their works, to make themselves more known. There's also me involved as a person, as a human being who has her own needs and which must be met one way or the other. So if you see and put value to the contribution that I make, towards your practice, then you should be able to, provide tangible value for it to in return. It's value
Mhm.
for value,
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, who are you? Who are you referring to with regards to, curators who charge money? I'm a curator. I'm first and foremost an independent curator. Um, yes, there have been opportunities to work full time, with spaces, institutions, and have much of your practice covered. But I'm not at that point in my life where I just sort of hang my very, very, how do I put it, liberal practice and become like, behind this kind of screen, vanity screen, or some kind of, I become the showcase itself. I'm put in some kind of vitrine and then I have to work within that box that they've put me in. I can't do that. I also don't have the time to do it. So maybe until an opportunity arises that would also take into consideration my own scheduling, then I can work with, institutions that have like that are governable. So as an independent curator, I don't have an institutional backing, for most of my projects, if not all of them. If they're not coming directly from my pocket, you're looking for grants, you're writing, proposals, you're trying to see how to fundraise for said project. And then when it involves artists, you have to find a way to make ends meet. And it's all very, I liked the fact that you sort of you know created like put the whole thing into a tabular form. There are traditional processes of
Mhm.
creating exhibitions. There's the application to grants and funding. Sometimes all the things you mentioned are rolled into one. So you have an artist who comes to me and he's like, "Oh, Kenny, I want an exhibition." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, what space are you working with?" "No space." What's do you have a space you want to work with? "No, not really. You just handle everything." So you have to start from the inception to put everything together. In fact, I'm like, "Do you have a body of work you want to exhibit?" "No."
You have to start from
"Okay."
scratch.
So you're like, where do we begin? From scratch. You have to conceptualize everything down to their creation. I try not to get involved with that. I'm like, just do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to give you comments. I'm not going to give you ideas. Just do your thing and then come and tell me this is what I have done. Um, beyond matter, even the down to materiality, I still sort of waver in how I engage them. So you have helping them to develop that body of work. Then you start to negotiate with galleries. For every show that I have to put together, for all the shows that I have put together in Nigeria that solely came from me and not the galleries or the whatever institution inviting me to do it, I've had to probably send 4 or 5 proposals to each space. And then, by the time you do all your negotiations, you come down to that one. And you should understand that in Nigeria, we have a lot of vanity galleries. Vanity galleries that they are not exactly, they don't get money solely from the works they sell. They get money from the artists who come to exhibit their works. So that's like their own primary sources of income. They are not interested in, fully backing you and say, come do your thing, nah. And a lot of times, even I as a curator, you also give, there are crucial projects that I didn't take a dime from, but simply, just sort of put it out there simply because you're buying into that whole dream of, propagating the art, your commitment to the art. And some things are also just worth it. So I think it's a very, I feel that the subject of today's discourse, should curators take money from artists, is very, very questionable. It's downright, I feel like boxing someone. Of course, I have to take money. I'm an independent curator. I don't have no museum backing me. For every grant, and the funding, I have to write it. I have to put all those things together. At least 6 out of 10 exhibitions that I've had to curate, that's the standard, that's the model. I have to look for everything. I have to do all the legwork. And at the end of the day, you need to meet an amicable agreement as to how you get some kind of reward, tangible reward that you see, not you tell me in 10 years' time, nah, or in 5 years' time when you become big, or in the next 50 years when you become big, you put my name in your collection or your biography and say Kenny was let's talk about the immediate reward or near immediate reward that I can get to settle the bills that are on my table as an independent curator yet again. I'll shut up my mouth now.
Thank you so much, Kenny. I understand your point of view as an independent curator. You need to be paid because, you have bills to pay, and I believe is a give and take situation. How about when you are working with emerging artists who do not have...
Sorry, Anita. I wanted to say something actually in response to Kendi.
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
All right. So, hi, Kendi. I actually do agree with everything that you said. I think it does make a lot of sense. It is an annoying question because I agree as well that curators are professionals and pretty much service providers. And, as a professional service, you have to be compensated for the work that you are doing. As much as it may or may not be a passion, it's not a passion project. So you do have to, you do have to receive payment for the work that you're doing for artists. And as you said, bills do have to be paid. And I think that I can speak from two sides as a lawyer and also as an artist. The lawyer part is also, I'm also a professional. I do have to charge clients for all the work I'm doing. It's my time. It's just basically me just sitting down and putting a lot down on paper that they may not be able to do for themselves, right? But then I think on the other hand, there is, which I think Anita was about to get into, the artists, maybe the emerging artists who you kind of need to, I guess, handle with care, because one, they may not necessarily be financially at that point where they can pay curators, which I think now brings in how should the curator be paid, right? And I think at the beginning of this, Lisa had talked about the different forms or methods of paying curators. There's the standard form, there's where the artist pays, and the other forms and all of that. So I do think that as an artist, right, artists need to figure out what works for them, right? You have discussions, because at the end of the day, all of this boils down to discussions. You discuss with the curator, obviously you figure out who you want to work with, who aligns with your vision, and who you can work with pretty much. And then you discuss what form works for you. Is it the standard where you're asking the curator to cover this and cover that? Is that going to be practicable for that curator? Is the curator an independent who's going to say, no, I can't do this, I need to charge you? Or do you as an artist, are you established? Do you have the funds? Do you have the backings from sponsors where they, pretty much cover everything and they pay for the curator as well? Or the other, other I guess models and stuff. So I do feel at the end of the day, all of these things boil down to conversations. and also being sure that whatever it is you eventually agree on as an artist or as a curator is something that is practical for you. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Chinyere, for your comments. So I was going to ask Kenny or Phil, like when you're working with an emerging artist, so to speak, and like what are the expectations? Should you, I mean, like Chinyere mentioned, you have discussions with them. What are these discussions like you have with these emerging artists? Let's take a scenario where the artist is not financially buoyant to, take care of, the work, and you are, say, an independent curator. And like, does it affect the pricing, or let's say the sales, like when it comes to if the artist is not going to pay anything and you're taking all the cost, what's the impact in the percentage of profit sharing? Does it affect that as well? So you can speak on it if you.
Okay, I'm gonna pick up something that Kenny said earlier about the different models sort of merging, and they can all be one.
One.
And I would answer your question, but I also want to state that there are some emerging artists who are not emerging financially. So they have donors, they have the corporate sponsorship, they have the foundations, they have the grants. I've come across such artists. Have I worked with some of those artists? No, because again, I like showing I show what I like, and that's just my bias. And I think as a curator and as an independent curator, so I'm not attached to any institution, I'm not attached to a particular gallery that I have to follow a timeline and, this is the program and this is what we're trying to push. So ultimately, I show what I like. And if I've seen that, the emerging artist is not financially buoyant, I like your work, there are some things that I can do. So maybe, I could invest, I could give you my space to use for free. There's so many things that I could do. Sometimes I even find myself, sort of, will I say, packaging the artist properly. So you might have the body of work, you might have the concept, you might have not been able to finally express what your ideas are and your thoughts are. I could then say to you that, I think you need to do a residency. I could give you books to read, again, it could be anything just to develop your practice. So in that sense, I'm not necessarily charging you or a fee. And even if I do exhibit you, the idea and the crux of what I'm doing is not necessarily for you to even be commercial or to sell. There's some situations where I have shown some artists and the idea was just to see how the market would react to their work. Again, it can be very surprising. You say, okay, let's see what happens here. So, maybe not everybody would like this particular work, and you put it out there, and you're surprised by the feedback. Emerging artists, they come in various forms. That's why I'm saying that you have to be very careful as to always saying, emerging artists, they're struggling, they don't have money. It's not always the case. There's some artists who you think are established, they're not able to garner an audience, they're not able to even get any form of sponsorship or any form of grant for whatever reason. And you find that this person that, has just recently graduated or is a self-taught artist is able to do so much. I've had somebody who was an emerging artist who showed that my space, no parking, and the place was packed. Even I at some point was asking the curator that handled the show that, are you sure this person is not, for whatever reason, maybe family background and, whatever they're able to amass. But I think we should be a little bit careful in saying that, emerging artists are not financially buoyant, and some of them do actually know what they want, believe it or not. So they may not have the experience, but they're very sure as to how they come in the space. They're very well read. They make the right contacts. They know who to go and speak to and who to avoid. It's almost like they've been in the industry for much longer than you know, maybe 5 years or 2 years or whatever amount of years that, you know, we kind of peg the emerging artist the cap anyway. But yeah, in terms of percentages and all of that, I mean, of course, you know, you're running the business. Even if you're an independent curator, you have, as Kenny has said, you have bills to pay. So, it just has to make sense somehow. If you're able to, again, support that artist with, you know, various resources that you have, it might not even be financial. It could come in other ways. But there must be a balance. There must be a way that, you know, you're going to have to offset, I don't know, whatever expenses that you've made. So, like I said, it's a case by case basis thing for me. I know some artists who I have not charged a commission, and I have some artists who have said, you know what, we're going to go as high as 30% because I've invested so much, and I know that because of how far we've come, we're able to recoup, you know, what we spent. So, you know, we could charge a higher commission for that. But I think for me, how I normally navigate is on a case by case basis. Not everybody would come to the table with the same thing. Like I said, some people are they'll come to you and say, oh, I've even been offered a grant. I don't know how to write the proposal, you know, how do I go about it? Or I've spoken to X amount of people. They're willing to support my career, and, you know, they're willing to give me X amount of money, or, you know, it could be anything. So yeah.
Thank you, Shema.
Yeah.
Thank you for your point of view. Promise, I would like to ask your own, from your experience, how has your journey been like working with, as an artist, working with curators and gallerists?
First of all, growing up, there's this word I used to avoid, which was hustling. I used to think, oh, hustlers are the wheelbarrow pushers and we are not sellers. But being an artist and being an adult has made me realize that everybody is hustling. From the president to, yes, the wheelbarrow pusher, we're all hustling. So it depends on the level of the hustle now. And why should the curator not be paid? I mean, he or she is hustling too. He or she is a professional. He or she is running a business. You're not going to meet a lawyer and say, oh, I have this case I want to do, and expect he or she to take your case for free. Mm-hmm. They don't know you. You don't pay their bills. You didn't put them through school or anything. That doesn't happen. So the curator it shouldn't even be argument or something, a debate or something. That's what it is. Now, the level of pay will depend on the curator. Also, the curator, okay, so there are two things. The curator putting up a show and the artist meeting the curator to put up a show. These are two different conversations. If you're going to the curator probably has her year planned, and you're coming to disrupt that, and you want them to, okay, remove XYZ person from their calendar and fix you in, and you want them to do all the homework, and it's a lot of work, and you don't want to pay them for all the service. Okay, you're not paying outright. It might be in percentage. Okay, curator, I like you, I like your work, I like your direction, your story, but I may not take upfront monies from you, but I'll take so percentage from sales because I know I can sell your work. But sometimes the curators might not be able to assure you of sales. So it'd be like, okay, I mean, you'll have to pay me this amount of money to do this service, and this is what we're going to do. I have worked with curators, I have worked with galleries, and sometimes it is not an easy relationship. You have to, I think communication is a big problem, especially with the Nigerian market. communication. A lot of people might feel some sort of way, or you say something and they don't come and say, oh, okay, I'm not happy about this, or I think we should do this. And they start holding grudges, and it affects, or not clearly stating, oh, this is what I want to do. This is how I work. Or this is not how I work, but I am willing to do X, Y, Z. A lot of people don't see things. And at some point, they just ignore you. I mean, we're having a communication, we're talking about something, and at some point, I don't really like how this is going. Why don't you just put that down? Okay, because of this, I don't think we can go on with this project. But communication is a big disadvantage with the Nigerian market. And galleries and curators do this a lot. And also, when you mentioned emerging artists, how are they going to be charged? Should the curator charge emerging artists? I wanted to ask a question. For an artist, if you're selling a work, are you going to care whether the person buying is an emerging collector or a seasoned collector? I mean, the price is the price, the work is the work. So why would you care if you're an artist and you don't want the curator to care? There's no balance there, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, the curator is hustling, the artist is hustling, and both parties need to come together and talk things through, have clear-cut communication, agreement, contracts, whatever, read and understand what each party is bringing to the table and make this work.
Thank you, Promise. Like you mentioned, clear-cut communication. This question is going to be for all panelists. Defining roles and expectation as a curator, a gallerist, an artist during the exhibition process. How do you go about this when you are curating or when you want to show an artist's work? Like, how do you tell the artist, okay, this is your work, this is my work, this is the work cut out for me, this is the gallery's portion? Like, say, in terms of logistics, will you take care of the logistics? Will the artist take care of it? Installation? Like, how do you define each person's role and responsibility in an exhibition process? Anyone can go, or it's for all the panelists to answer.
Okay. So it's again, this is a very subjective question. If, say, the idea for a show, it comes from a gallery or an institution that is like, okay, we want this artist to exhibit here, or we want an exhibition, with no specification for an artist, and we want you to, help plan it and the entire exhibition making process. Like, okay, so you already know what is cut out for you. And a lot of times, the artist in this case, what they have to do is to just, create the body of work expected to be shown. And that's just about it as per, their involvement. And of course, providing necessary materials that will be added to the show. It's, like their profiles and statements and, those kinds of materials that would help for the viewers' accessibility of these works. And that's the role of the artist in this position. And then, the institution, all they have to do is to provide materials, because they're the ones who, are running the show, as they say. And again, in most scenarios like this, the artist doesn't have to pay a dime. The person or the group that has the responsibility to pay me as a curator is the space that invited me to put all of this show together. So the artist doesn't have to pay them. All they have to do is just to contribute. And a lot of times, when it comes to remuneration, for work sold or just for even participating, we are going to pay you X amount or give you this. It's now between the artist and the space. And I hate the word middleman, but sometimes that's what the curator is at, given instances. Like, it's not you're not a complete intermediary, but sometimes it factors into your role at that given moment. So you you could be seen as that at that moment because you're connecting these two, although the two could meet, but you know it just wouldn't be as substantive as it would be when you are participating. That's the curator is participating, hence them involving you in the first place. So it's a very, very like I said at the beginning, a subjective question as to who is doing what, and all of that. But in cases where it's an artist who comes to me and is like, "Oh, I want to put this show together," then we are, less work is given to the gallery, other than, yes, you're going to host the show. So, and some galleries are kind enough to offer materials. Okay, what do you want us to do to help? How can we make the entire process um, um, helpful? Like, how can we assist? How can we do this? But a lot of times, much of the responsibility is on the artist and you. And this is sort of a practice seen across borders. So it's not even a Nigerian thing alone to say, oh, they just put all the work on you. If you're the one and the artist, or you people are going to propose something to the gallery, some galleries, some very corporate galleries will step in. Okay, we are doing this, we are handling this, we are handling that. But some other galleries will be like, well, you have the space, so just bring tell us what you need, and we'll see if we can make that work. If we can't, you have to find ways to bring that in and all of that. And then there are times when it's now me as a curator who is proposing a show, and I take it to the artist, and I also take it to the gallery or whatever institution. And then, as usual, the brunt of the work falls back on you. But again, the gallery or whatever institution it is works with me to see how we can realize it, and then just producing the work and all necessary materials for said show. That's the responsibility that falls back to the artist. So it's pretty much it's pretty much a cut and dry thing, I guess. But I don't know if Sheung, who runs the space, would have alternate like an alternate response.
Thanks, Kenny.
I think it's pretty much the same standard in most places. I mean, if you have the big box galleries, they will tell you, that they can cover most things like you said. But I think maybe let's use the artist-led spaces that are not galleries, for example. I don't know if we're covering that. I mean,
yeah, you can. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so maybe a restaurant or a warehouse or something. We're starting to see exhibitions happen in various spaces apart from galleries. So again, I know what would normally happen with, maybe let me say, a restaurant, for example. It would be very clear cut that they don't want to cover things like maybe installation, even down to marketing. They'll tell you, okay, that is your problem. However way you want to market it, you can put our logo on it. However, all we're pretty much giving you is, use of the space. And what they would expect at the end of it is you pay for the space, and then they also charge you a commission for whatever is earned, because they would say to you that, oh, what we are running here is a restaurant, we are not a gallery, so that means we have to have somebody on the side that would be, that would be marketing, marketing the works on the wall, And you as the independent curator, of course, you're thinking about so many other things. You know, it's not in the typical gallery space. You're going to have to start going there maybe every day to see if the works have the poured soup on it or something, you know, all these many dramas that comes into play when it's not in a traditional gallery setting. But you know, to go back to what you've asked, I think again it really depends on the institution. Some people would you know, just outrightly pay for an independent curator to come in, you know, bring in your artist, you know, run the show from beginning to end. Basically, we have the space, we will give you support in terms of installation. I'm just speaking from my experience of what normally happens with the galleries that I work with. And yeah, they you know, it will just be, you know, you're giving a fee, and you're given that chance to, you know, really run an exhibition that perhaps is different from the usual template that they have or whatever. Many galleries would, if they've invited you, they will try their best to accommodate. I'm sorry, my neighbor's dogs. Please excuse me. They will try very hard to accommodate your request and, you know, whatever you need to sort of make the exhibition happen. There are some other models as well that would involve the artist being commissioned. So I must actually state, you know, you're either meeting the artist where they've done the works already and you're just selecting, you know, whatever it is that you want to exhibit, you know, again, putting it together and making sure that it fits into your theme or whatever it is you're trying to put together for that gallery. And there's some cases where you have to commission the artist. So I think in those instances, the responsibility of the artist is a little bit higher, because this is not a situation where you're just left to chance and it's like, okay, these are the works I have ready, or this is what I have available to show, or this is the body of work I'm currently prancing around with. You have now been commissioned. You know there's an exhibition coming up. You have to deliver. So again, maybe you've been told 10 works, 5 works, 1 work, 2 works, whatever. You know, now you have that responsibility. You cannot go back in most cases because, again, you might have been given materials, maybe a space to work. So many things may have gone into, you know, putting the show together, as opposed to the curator just coming to meet you and asking you to join the show. And, you know, again, like I said, it's really on a case by case basis. And I think what would mostly happen is, you know, you get the curator to come in. You've been invited, curate the show, and the artist just sits back and maybe produces work if they've been commissioned to do so. I think what normally happens after that is you might have the meetings back and forth about what you're creating, and then maybe closer to the show you could come in and assist with installation. If the curator is also the exhibition designer, I mean, that's also something that can be a bit problematic as well. So I'm always very particular. Am I curating the show? Am I also designing the space? So that's a different level, and we're going into another realm, you know. You know, if that's the case, because some artists have particular installations and, you know, a certain way that they want their works to be presented. Again, if it's a very big gallery that has a lot of resources, perhaps they have funding and sponsorship from all over the globe, they would accommodate you as much as they can. Other galleries will say to you, you know, we have limited resources and we can't do this, we can't do that, or we've given you the space, you have to go and get funding for execution, basically. So let me just leave it there.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that some artists prefer a way their works should be displayed during an exhibition. Like, how do you manage that in a situation where you have your own thought process on how the exhibition should look like, and the artists then come and say, oh no, I want this, I don't want that. How do you manage that situation?
I mean, for me, it's pretty much early on. I don't think I would work with somebody who would pull that up sort of like last minute. Um, but I mean, when I start selecting works, I'm also conscious of the kind of artists that I'm working with. So if you're somebody that's very particular, if you're a sculptor, even if you're a painter and you work with a certain material, so we need to hang in a certain way, those are conversations that you have at the beginning, not towards the end, and you're now trying
Execution.
to, yeah.
Okay. Kenny, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
I see your hand is up.
Yeah, it just occurred to me now that, much of your, the subject, the questions that you've asked, and the impending attack on curators who are like artist galleries and like pay me my money. It's actually channeled, or it's directed to vanity galleries, and not me at the very least. Vanity galleries who would charge artists to, to what do they say, pay to play. You're paying to play. So for you to bring your works here, you have to pay. For you to do this, you have to pay. Even as a curator, for you to bring this proposal here, you have to pay for the space. And it's I think I'll be honest to say it, and perhaps it's because of the country's economy, but it's a very rampant practice that is widespread in our dear country, and which brings up issues such as the one I guess you're trying to you know resolve, or find some kind of begin to find solutions to. But a lot of galleries, that's their model. They have to find profits from in a way, but the bulk of art, if you look at it, is there has to be a level of service, service, some kind of commitment to promote the art, to propagate the art, as I like to say. But most spaces are very, very, adamant about seeing how to get, you know, as much as they can. And so everybody becomes a victim. And where everybody becomes a victim, it becomes a dog eat dog world. And I'm also trying to get paid. Like I said, stack of bills on my table that I have to pay. I have to resolve. Otherwise, they're kicking me out of my house, or they're coming to cut my lights. It's all the realities that we are used to. But I should also, say that this is a conversation which is very important, but I'm the wrongest person, for you to be asking or channeling that question to. You should be directing the question to people who run these institutions, asking them why they've chosen to run their spaces in the way that they have, which sort of prioritizes profit making. Like it's not just I mean everybody wants to make profit, but it's become very you know capitalist oriented. It's like we are not even, it's they are seeing red, as we like to say. It's like red, the red is the color of money. If it's not talking about how much it can bring, I'm not doing it. Last year I wanted to do a show that involved I think one of the artists is here, Paul. And at first I wanted it to I wanted one in Lagos and the other like a continuing show elsewhere. And almost all the galleries that I went to, cool galleries that you people know their names and are always there. You need to see how much they were charging me. And I'm like, but look, this is okay. So this is the proposal. This is the context of everything I'm trying to do. This is how this is what it's going to bring. But they were not seeing that. They were like, okay, so down payment, and they were like, okay, we're going to reduce the money. And that's a story for a lot of spaces across the country. And that's why emerging artists, like you say, find it difficult. But I tell you this thing, it's not just about emerging artists. Even the established artists, they also suffer this, where you can't just take your works to a space and easily convince them that,
Mm.
okay, why don't you buy into this? Why don't you buy into the idea? Only a very few spaces. And I know some of them, you know, Kokopelli galleries there. In fact, that was such, this gallery was one that, you know, invited me to sort of help with our first initial relationship was for me to, you know, help their operational procedure. They were a new gallery and they were trying to expand, they were trying to do this. And in the process of our conversation, I was like, oh, okay, I'm buying into this. This is how a gallery should be run. This is that, you know, and seeing what they've been doing over the last, you know, couple of years, it's very, very um, encouraging, and I would say reinvigorating of my, you know, continued decision to work within, you know, the space and collaborate with spaces in Nigeria, because it becomes very difficult. You know, why don't you buy into this? It's just a very few spaces. So I feel like this conversation is something that should be directed to people who run spaces across the country, and you're asking them, so how do we change this, you know, style? How do we become less vain? How do we prioritize people who have something, who look promising, people who should be given a voice to, you know, express themselves or show these new forms of expressions that they've developed? And it's not just, again, a problem that emerging artists have to deal with. I've worked with established artists, and it's a very, it's their reality. It's their reality as well. So yeah, it's not a curator
Thanks,
problem.
Kenny. I have a question. For those galleries who request payments to use their space, do they also request for commission in
Yes,
sales?
Oh, yes,
yes.
they do. They
Oh
do.
yes, that's
Oh,
it's the style. It's the
it
style.
is.
It's, I can count. I promise. I'm so sorry, but this is a very, you know, it's a very contentious topic, because I told you from the beginning that this feels like an
Yes.
affront on me. You know, because I'm like, it's not me. It's, I don't run a space. I try to collaborate with spaces, but
Mhm.
if you're not making allowances, even for me, the curator, it's difficult to make allowances for the artist and
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm just going to, okay, I'll reduce my demands, or I'll reduce whatever it is I'm asking.
Can
But
I chip in a
yes, they
little bit,
ask you,
Kenny?
the money you're paying to play in their space is just entry fee. Then there's the actual, you know, cockage, as they
Yeah.
say, cockage fee that you
I'm
pay, which is the
sorry to
commission.
laugh so hard.
And
Can
then
I chip?
let me
Oh,
open
go on,
some
let me let
people's
you
yash.
finish.
I will not
Mm.
mention their names. I'm so sorry, pardon my French. But at the end of the day, when you're asking for the commission, you know, it's almost so egregious, in that you're asking, say, for 50%, you know. And then I'm like, okay, so if you ask for 50% as a space, and of course 50% is ideal to go to the artist, what comes to me? Who is paying me? How am I involved?
Yeah.
That's actually the struggles of, you know, independent curators, because you're in between, you know, two parties that obviously can't do without your input. I mean, your input is crucial to the successful partnership between these two parties. And when it comes to, you know, remuneration, you're forgotten. It's almost like you don't exist. It's almost like you don't exist.
Yeah.
So
Shaki,
I'm
go
going
ahead.
to touch on I'm going to touch a little bit on the space angle, and then I'll talk about the remuneration of the curator. So I agree, not many spaces, and I think sometimes we need to be. This is not me supporting the model that some galleries have, or most galleries have, but I think sometimes as well, you also need to understand the way some organizations run. So I've had some artists who, and this is not in any way to say they can't show in certain spaces. So I'll use Art 21, for example. Somebody came to me and said, and was asking, where she could exhibit. And one of the very first places she mentioned was Art21. She mentioned the museum. I know what it takes to have exhibitions in these spaces. And for me, automatically, I was like, okay, you're not even cutting your coat according to the fabric you have or anything that and guess what? She was sat in my space, which I must say is dedicated to these sort of nuances that we have. However, I've had so many artists come in, they'll say, Sharon, this your space is okay, but it's too small, or it's too this, it's too that. And it makes me start to wonder what they're really looking for, because I tell you for free now, yes, it's not, it doesn't look like the typical shiny gallery space that, the white walls that people want or whatever. It is a space at the end of the day. It is a space that is open to emerging artists. And I keep saying this because that is why that space is there. It's a multi-use space. You're allowed to come there to exhibit, albeit I would charge a small fee for maybe cleaning or fixing the walls or whatever. But I'm not saying bring 1 million naira to showcase for 2 weeks or whatever. And neither am I interested in the commission that you're charging, because the business model is quite different. So this is not the advisory arm. This is the space in itself for younger artists to showcase. But I find that I speak to them and there's a sort of disconnect in terms of what the expectations are and what they even want. If I was an artist, I'll be open to showing anywhere that would say to me that maybe bring 50K or bring 100K to touch up the walls or do whatever, and we have a small opening for you, and we're good to go, as opposed to, I want to go to this particular gallery because this is, I think I can tap into their network or whatever. Guess what? I really believe that if you want to go there, you should be able to pay for their services, because again, they're running a different ball game. This is not one of their CSR projects that they're running or something. Some of these spaces also have that, and if you're not able to tap into that programming, I think we shouldn't get too carried away and saying that this is it. Everyone's looking for money, and guess what? If they feel like the value that the emerging artist is bringing is not in line with what they're looking for, by all means, I think that they're allowed to stand their ground and put them in other programming that they might have for emerging artists. I don't think it's fair to say maybe in high season that's when they want to show an emerging artist who they're giving the space for free or whatever. I think we should try and be a bit more. Yeah, and I'm promoting my space, but again, like I said, I've been in conversation with many of the artists, and they say to me, Sean, this your space is small, or who is going to come here? Oh, it's in Onikon. Are you sure people from Victoria Island will come down here? Are you sure people from Ikoyi? And it just makes me wonder what we really want. There's spaces on the main as well that I work with, and they just they turn their noses up at these spaces and say, oh, it's in Ikeja. It's in this place, it's in Ikorodu or wherever. And it's like, if you want premium, I think you should be able to pay for premium. That's just my belief.
I agree with you. Chinyere, do you have any point of view to discuss to this, to add from a legal standpoint, or even as an artist?
I don't think she's here.
Yeah, I think her network is going bad. Okay, somebody asked, Sharon, please, what's the name of your space so can patronize you and have low cost in terms of.
So this is the problem. You see, when we're not for profit, our landlords can kick us out and we can have all sorts of problems. So it's got no parking Lagos, but we're currently moving spaces, so we should be open again in January, and we'll be there to serve the emerging artists.
All right, January is
when you're not for profit, there's a lot of things that come into play as well.
Exactly, I agree. Okay, Promise, do you have any before we move to the next question, do you have any contribution or comments to this?
Yeah, while they are talking, I have a lot of things going on in my head. I'm thinking something while they are talking. But I want to draw analogy, an experience I had when I was younger. I think I just finished secondary school then, and I was with my friend, and we're looking at this furniture shop, and they had really nice furniture. I told him, wow, I'd like to buy furniture here at some point. He looked at me and laughed and said, promise, you're never going to buy any furniture here. Number one, right now, you're too broke to buy anything. And then when you finally make the money, of course, there'll be better places to buy from. But the truth is, this is a human thing. A lot of artists have this ego that come to play, especially with spaces. And at some point, what you need is to show your work. You need to exhibit. I was talking to my friend the other day. I told him one thing I regret not doing was doing online exhibitions when people were taking it for granted. I mean, it's a hurdle getting a space to show your art in Lagos. But then there's this online space, but we're too used to the traditional space. And then we're downplaying these things. And I've come here, I've seen people very big and they're exploring these avenues. And then you're there looking at, oh, it has to be a big space. It has to be this kind of space. It has to be that kind of space. When there's an online space that you're not actually paying space, you're not paying for the space, it's there. It's a lot of people are online and they will see your work. You can have your exhibition like a normal, have someone curate the exhibition like you will do in a normal space, but it's online, it's virtual. People will see the exhibition, people will enjoy your works, people will buy your works. And then there's this other thing I've also experienced. I recently had an exhibition in London. And after then, yes, I want to show work. So I've met some galleries. Yes, they might appear small, but I'm talking to them and say, oh, I like this space. I like us to do something. And they'll say, oh, okay, let's see your work. And they see the work. I say, oh, I don't think we can show your work because your works are too big, they're too expensive and all. Bro, I just want to show my work. I want to exhibit. It's not about, right now, it's not about sales. I want to show, I want to work with you. Let's see if we can do something. And that's also what happens with curators and artists sometimes. I mean, you need to show your work for starts. You need to show, you need to exhibit before you can get to that level where, I want to show in this big ass place in New York and you can afford it. But right now you can't afford it. And how do you get people to know you, to see your work, to enjoy you, to have that conversation, interact with your work? Is by showing your work, exhibit, create that avenue so people can come see your work, interact with you, share your story, share their stories, what are their input about your work, your material, your style, and all that. You need to show your work. Look for the space. It doesn't matter how small it is. It's a space and they welcome you with open arms. Show your work. I think that is one thing I did as an artist when I left school. I was in Port Harcourt, yes. I mean, it's a totally different, you're talking about galleries in Lagos and the models is a totally different ballgame in Port Harcourt. Let's not even go there. It was. So yeah, in Port Harcourt, there's this thing the Korean people call matching grounds. I think that's what the galleries in Lagos are taking. They take matching ground. First of all, before you can do anything, they take your monies first and they take percentage on that. And then you need to buy food and drinks on top of that too. And then you need to pay for advertising, promoting it because they're not going to do stuff for you. But in Port Harcourt, it was a totally different, but you don't just pay for all that. You also have to pay for security because the queer people can come and hijack your, yes.
Interesting.
It's a totally different ball game, but you need to thrive. You need to put this thing out there. You need that engagement. You need people to come see your work. You need to show and listen to people and they listen to you. So yes, spaces are there. And what are artists doing with these spaces or about these spaces? you need to work with these spaces. That is the way you grow. You have to take these things step by step, step by step. It's okay to jump 10 steps, but then that will take a lot of money. Do you have that money? You don't have that money. Man, yes, I know a lot of people talk about Art 21 space. In fact, that is the most popular space every artist will talk about. You want to exhibit in Lagos, oh, it's Art 21. But then do you have Art 21 money? No. Do you have works to show? Yes. Then look for a place that you can afford. There are places that will not take a dime from you and show your work. Why don't you start with that and build on that? Yes, it's not an easy road. And like I said, we're all hustling, and most artists want to jump the gun and get to the top. They want to sell at XX figure. They want to show at XS place. They want to go to XX art fair and all that. In fact, some artists will rather not even show in Nigeria at all. Oh. Yes, they're still in Nigeria. They would rather not show in Nigeria. And then I think this issue is quite hydra-headed, because it's the artist's fault, it's the curator's fault, it's the gallery's fault, it's the economics, it's the politics of this whole thing. I was talking to someone at some point, and someone introduced me to this person. And the first question this person is asking is, where have you shown? How much are your works selling for? And all that. I don't think that is the first question the curator should be asking the artist. I mean, you want the artist to do your work for you. Asking the artist, where have you shown? How much are you selling? When was the last time you sold? Is the wrong question. First of all, have an interaction with the artist and his idea, his work first. You need to understand these things first. This thing will want to put the artist in a position where, oh, so if I don't do this and do this, nobody is going to listen to me. And they are running with that mindset. So you're not going to blame them most times or sometimes. They are running with a mindset the society has forced upon them. And they're not looking elsewhere or re-educating themselves or trying to learn how to navigate through these hula hoop in a totally different way. So,
thank
you. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Promise. I can see Cheryl and Kenny's hand up, but first I would like, because Promise mentioned something about online gallery. And I know Mrs. Ronke runs an online gallery. I don't know if she's on the call. I would like her to speak on how the process is for her showing works on her platform online. And then we'll get back to Cheryl and Kenny.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you to the panelists as well. It's been very, very informative. For me, I must start from when I started online. Well, let me say I did an experiment. And I must say it was my husband that pushed me to it and says you should try it out, which I did. And that was in 2019. But there were so many challenges because I did not understand how the online exhibition works. So for me, the first thing I did was I took over all the artworks I wanted to exhibit. And I think that was a mistake because Nigeria, we're used to traditional exhibition, after I declared it was an online exhibition, I had a lot of people still insisting they wanted to see the work physically. And me, being the novice, decided to do a private view, and that cost me dearly. So when it comes to logistics, I ended up spending so much money on logistics, knowing fully well I was running an online exhibition. And those were the areas where you can put under challenges and some areas where you say, okay, first time trial, this shouldn't work and that shouldn't work. But for online gallery, it's a totally different ball game. For me, this is how I run my online gallery. I I ask the artist to keep his work or our work. I do not have to collect the work. Because right now, being in the UK, I've had exhibitions where the works are with the artist. And once we have sales, I, as an institution, I take over some various expenses. But all this also has to boil down to the agreements you make with the artist. And that's the first point of, in fact, that's the very first thing you have to do. Before you go into anything with any artist, wherever the artist is in the world, you must have a form of agreement stating every single thing that is going to happen in that exhibition. Why? Because people are fickle. If you don't do that, at the end of the day, the artist might come back to you and with some misconceptions, and you don't want to start saying, oh, this was what I said, or this is what I didn't say. So first things first, your most important goal is to make sure you have an agreement. So for me, as an online person, which is what I do now, even though I miss physical exhibitions, but it's been a different ballgame entirely. And it's quite easier, like Promise said. You have a lot of people who get to see your work. You actually reach out to more audience as opposed to physical. And then you have people, even if they don't buy your work, it's all about showcasing your work, and the cost is so limited. And for me, what Promise said is very important. Artists should also learn to be able to say, this exhibition is just for me to showcase my work. It's not about making money. Like if you just finish a new body of work, yes, we get that everybody needs money to pay bills and stuff like that. But if you find an online platform who is willing to show your work, don't have a focal point of view of having that you want to sell. Sometimes when you finish a new body of work, it's best for you to actually just show the people. And then from there, you can now move on to, okay, now I want to sell my work. But I think a lot of artists forget that the idea of being an artist is for you to actually show your work first. And rather than trying to make money, you need to be able, like if you're stuck in your studio for like a year plus, working on something, your first point of call is to showcase that work and put the income or making money at the back door. That will definitely come. And I always tell people, or well, I tell artists that I talk to, said, see, if your money is, if your work is outstanding, trust me, it will sell. You don't need a soothsayer to go and ring your bell and say, come and buy this work. Once people see it, it will sell. And artists should learn to also create a story behind their work. I think a lot of them actually forget to do that. But that's a topic for another day or anything. But for online gallery, yes, it's a different ballgame. The old content, the old structure for online gallery is totally different from physical gallery. I don't collect the works from artists. Once we sell, then I reach out to the artist and then we do the logistics. But before the exhibition, the job of the artist is to stay in the studio and prepare his work. And when the work is done, get a good photographer or a photographic person and get good resolution of the images of the work, and then it goes online. I think I would employ a lot of artists to actually try that avenue. In Nigeria, we're very, very orthodox. We like our traditional spaces. But yeah, the truth is, yes, traditional spaces in Nigeria can be very, very rigid. But I'm sure at some point, because now they have competition when it comes to online, and they see that a lot of the online galleries are actually making more traction. So I think someday, somehow, they would look into their structure and redesign some things.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ranke. Just to ask one last question before you go. So do you charge fee for showing on your platform online?
Okay, so for that, I want to consider myself a gallerist.
Okay.
I have to differentiate between being a gallerist and being a curator. For me, when it comes to wearing my cap as a curator, that means you've come to knock on my door. I have to work with a body of work, a collection. I have to do everything from scratch. I have to do the research, I have to build the collection. That I would definitely charge you a big fee, because you are giving me the work to do the research, to build the body, to do the collection and everything. For me, showcasing your work as a gallerist, I will not charge you, but my percentage will carry a curatorial fee. So in my percentage that I'm going to put in your agreement, there is the curatorial fee of a 10% that is attached to it. So it depends on different institutions, individuals, different independent curators, how you want to structure yourself. This is my own structure. This is how I work. When I need to put on my gallery's cap, I do. So most of the time, artists reach out to me, I show their works online, I don't charge anything, but in the agreement, it is stated that there is a 10% curatorial fee. But if I have to put on my curator's hat, whereby people call me to ask for my curatorial expertise, then I structure a fee for them, because that is a different ballgame entirely. So yeah, there are two different things, the way I see it, and yeah, that's how I can explain it.
Thank you so much. Kenny, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I've been making notes, as I'm wont to, if you know me. And I'd like to, first of all, agree with someone who, Edosa Ogiugo, who said something about, I guess galleries needing to redesign their business model to accommodate sponsorship, which is very true. I'd already made a note on that, and then I was just going through people's comments, and I was like, a lot of times when we are trying to hold galleries accountable to this issue, they should be able to, in the absence of money, you can't pay the, like I said, entry fee to exhibit there, let alone the corkage fee. Then how do we work together to come up with that? Do you have people that we can write to on your behalf? Do you have, people that we can, or places that you can go find funding from that we can help you, like we could work together on it? Now it becomes a collaborative partnership between these people, these groups, and rather than you saying, oh, you don't have this X amount of money to pay to exhibit here, sorry, we can't give you audience because we have other people who will pay. So that's like one thing spaces can do. Just work with, be the galleries, be the curators to find funding, or just don't shut them down immediately. And someone mentioned Shewa, I think it was you who talked about ATO at 21 and promised to me, they mentioned, like you mentioned them. And I want to correct something. I've worked it at 21 as a guest curator, as with other spaces, and I didn't have to pay a dime. It's about the strength of your proposal. And I know people who have worked with them who are not exactly big artists that didn't pay a dime. It's about, again, the strength of your proposal. What are you proposing? And the model is what also extends to galleries and institutions everywhere else. What are you bringing? What are you proposing? What's the extent? And that's the problem again. People don't know how to put exhibition proposals together. And in our country where everybody is a damn curator or gallerist, they don't know how to do these things. I mentioned Kokopelli Gallery. Daria, I promise you, it's not because I saw you here. He's the director of the space. I'd mentioned you already, in the first instance. And galleries like this, it's about the strength of your application. There are a couple of galleries who are, welcoming and accepting of artists and curators and even patrons who are like, oh, I have this idea for a show, and they're like, okay, how can we work to, realize your idea? So there are spaces like that, and I just wanted to, when you know something, you just have to put it out there that it's not exactly, these people they don't tell you no money, no honey, as they say. It's not that. And Promise, you said something about cutting, the artist cutting their clothes according to their size. I get you, contentment is everything. But as an artist, with the magnitude of your ideas or how you even conceive of these ideas, you should be allowed to dream big. If an artist who just started last year says, I want to exhibit at the Met, they have that audacity too. They have that ground too. All you have to do now is just to structure your work and your process, in a style or towards a style that can be accommodated in these places. So I don't think it's difficult. I mean, as a curator, I would use my own story as an example. By the second year of my practice, I was doing a bruise. And I know people who have been 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in their practice, and they've not done work or with artists of that caliber, if you want to say. And the idea, the way we do our things and how we tend to compartmentalize people or infantilize people would be that, oh, you're too small to do a bruise. It was a big challenge. Like I knew about Bruce. I'd read about him, but I never even dreamt. Like I didn't I didn't dream of working with him because for me I had not gotten to that level. But when I was invited to curate the show, I picked up my two left legs and found ways to, insert myself and do something that would make sense. And that's the kind of allowance creative should be given. And if I didn't have that opportunity, perhaps my work would not have taken the turn it's taken. So where it concerns cutting your clothes according to your size, at that time, if someone told me that, I would not have, that's why I didn't pursue anything. Or if I had taken it and I was telling, oh, I have this Bruce project that I was invited to curate. And they're like, Kenny, 2 years, nah, you're still a baby curator, you can't do this. Cut your coat according to your size. It would have limited my ability to do something that even, surprised me myself. And that's what creativity is about. It's not about the level of your practice or your experience or where you are from or where you are at now. It's about your ability to project yourself, onto a level or status or whatever that allows you to churn out as much value that would find its market or audience, so to speak. So that's in response to that. When I wrote cutting clothes according to size, but you must dream big and you must allow yourself to dream big and you must attain those big dreams, as artists especially. Then it comes to the question of space. I agree with you. A lot of artists maybe would say, oh, their eyes are only on those big spaces, which again is allowed. But say if you're bidding your time, because these big spaces maybe plan their shows 2, 3, 5 years in advance. So while you're in line to do that, what are you doing currently? You have to find means to exhibit your works. You have to find, opportunities to exhibit your work. You have to, if it's difficult to break through, the gallery spaces, especially around you, find alternative exhibition spaces that you can work with. Find those things. You're an artist, you're able to make out of the box, creations. So you should be able to find out of the box ways to showcase them. So it can be anything. And talking about spaces, I don't think there's any space too small, too non-traditional, too shabby looking to do anything. After all, people who we've come to celebrate today and recognize as icons within the space, they all had very irregular styles of, being artists, especially at the beginning of their career. And it's different today where, with social media and everything, it's like all scary. But you need to find spaces. We have even curators like the Serpentine Galleries guy, Hans Ulrich Obrist, who his first exhibition was in a kitchen. He's not an artist. He's a curator, and he's perhaps one of the forefront or leading curators in the world today and has been for the last 2 decades at least. How did he start his exhibition? In a kitchen, the kitchen of his apartment. So barring even the curators themselves, you as an artist need to be accepting of, alternate styles of exhibiting your work so that you're not, you don't become a victim to, like I said, the vanity spaces that are all about profit. You pay to play, and that's how it is, and that's how it will be, and you can't change it. So you have to now find alternate ways to break through this problem. And then finally, promise again, this is to in response to something he said. He said something about, oh, when you're interacting with an artist, you shouldn't ask them, where have you shown? What have you sold? When did you last sell? Those are pertinent questions. I will ask you. If you tell me, Kenny, come curate my show, I'll be like, okay, so what are you about? It's not a date. I'm not trying to find out your inner beauty or look at your inner beauty alone. No. I mean, there is that. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. Any successful, creative partnership, especially where it involves an artist and a curator, from my own standpoint, you need to know how the artist intestines, intertwine. You need to know all that. So there's the inner beauty part, but you need the outer one, the money part. I need to know your level. I need to know what you aspire to. Take, for instance, my first collaboration with Art21. It was a conversation. So I see it's a very, very, it's not deistic. It's just, I see myself as some kind of dream actualizer to an extent within reason. And I was talking to Bruce, a year before, during the, a year before in 2019, and then early 2020, when we're all running mad, with COVID-19 and everything. Oh, what kind of space, is there any dream space you would like to exhibit in? And he was like, Kenny, there's one at 21. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then we talked about some other things, because I was planning, for the retrospective, and that was like taking my entire focus. But in the brief moment we did talk about that one dream space that he was still, hoping to exhibit, at least, even if, well, in fact, he was like, I've given up, I'm not even looking at that. But since you asked, that gallery, Kenny, it is big, this, that. I'm like, okay. That sort of, it went over my head, or it flew over my head. And afterwards, after a little time, I was like, you know what, why don't I do the whole genie in a bottle thing? And then I wrote to Colleen, who owns the space, and gave her a whole proposal from like the get-go, and she bought it. I didn't pay a dime, like I said, and Bruce himself wasn't expecting it. I just came to him, months later, and I'm like, oh, by the way, we have a show with at 21. That's like, that's why I'm like, you need to know them down to their, like, what makes them tick. And if someone else was there, they probably wouldn't have understood how important exhibiting at that space was, because he didn't necessarily eviscerate like the emotions. But because I'd been, connected with this man for the period of time, which was short at the time, I still understood it to be something. So yes, we need to know you down to that level, but it's also very important, yes, at the get-go, to understand where you've shown your works, how much you've sold, or what your works go for. It's part of it. I try not to be involved with, the commercial aspect of art. I think there are more than enough hands there, but it's still very crucial information for me to do whatever I need to do with the artist and for the artist. So yeah, I think that's just about what I have. Thank you. I'll shut up now.
Thanks for sharing your own point of view. Before we go, I'd like everyone on the call to know that this discussion is hosted by Jade Art Collectives. You can follow us on Instagram at Jade Art Collectives and check out our website, jadeart.com, where we have various online shows. I'll take, Sharon, you can go ahead now.
No, just very quickly, Kenny, you just been making me laugh. So, I'm gonna touch on two things. So again, I'll also take your I'll also use a phrase that you used earlier. So value for value. So again, your proposal, you are going to exhibit Bruce Onobakweya. This is an icon, an icon. So I'll even our 21 will be damned if you know if they didn't showcase that. The reason why I specifically mentioned some artists, you know, and then cutting the coat according to their cloth, specifically where they haven't even done the work, I think is very important. And that's why I highlighted that. Of course, you know, people, you're creative, and first of all, your duty and how you navigate life has to be out of the box. You're challenging, you know, the norm. So of course, you're allowed to again dream big or do what hasn't been done before, or elevate you know, how we navigate our daily lives. However, we're still going back to this value for value thing that you mentioned, as well as also knowing how a space works. So of course, you mentioned Kokopelli, you mentioned Art21 as well. I also know of some projects that have gone to Art21 and they have charged them mega bucks. So I don't know if that was a deterrent to maybe chase them away, but you know, whatever the case, they could afford it and they paid and they had their shows there. However, I think it's also important for artists, you know, whether emerging or not, to just know the terrain you're going into. And promise, I must say, I would ask you every question under the earth if you come to me to say you want to exhibit. I don't want to be taken by, if you've exhibited in a farm, if you've exhibited in Art21, I want to know every detail, just so that the work I do also captures what has been done in the past, you know. You must do that research. Another reason why I always ask where artists have exhibited before is even for presentation styles as well. So if I'm working with any artist, one of the first things I also do is to go back and see where they've exhibited. There's an artist that I worked with very recently. She does not use black frames. I don't know how one of our team members missed it, but it was something that was very key. Going back to her exhibition history and seeing where she had exhibited, of course, I picked that up immediately. I was like, okay, there's a particular style that she has. And, you know, again, if we're asking these questions, it's not just about even asking what you sold or how much you sold. It's also presentation as well. I've said this thing, and I know promise this would even apply to you as well. There's some artists that are very particular about the way their works are presented. They don't care if they sell. Their own is, don't present my work in a way that doesn't, you know, sort of agree with what I'm doing. So I think, yeah, those are two things I wanted to just quickly touch on.
Thank you, Sharon. Tunde, I see your hand up, but we'll come back to you when it's time for questions. The next question is for Chinyere. As a legal practitioner who is practicing, in terms of contracts and agreements between curator, galleries, and artists, how do you think this should go about? Because there's some situations where you sign an agreement and you miss out some details, and during the course of maybe post-production, something goes left. How do you manage that? I know in terms of sales and commission, some artists are very impatient, and we also have collectors who pay instrumentally. How should these agreements be drafted? How should they be communicated? And so on.
All right, thank you, Anita. Yeah, so I mean, I think, yeah, it's definitely something that artists need to pay serious attention to, because agreements are essentially meant to protect not just the artists, but the curators as well, or even the galleries, depending on if, it's like a runker type situation where you're both a gallerist and you're a curator. Now, I feel like, once you sign the agreement, there isn't necessarily a going back to say, oh, I didn't think about this, or I didn't realize that there was going to be instrumental payment or a discount applied on my work, so this and that. All of this has to be agreed on or discussed at the minimum before signing any agreements. There are lots of terms that artists need to nowadays like familiarize themselves with. Like for instance, like exhibition agreements will have certain clauses and terms, such as like the number of artworks to be exhibited, the sale percentage. So is the gallery getting 30%? Is the artist getting 70, or is it 50-50? Because different agreements and different galleries, different artists have like charged different percentages. Then also like transportation. Now, I think the transportation clause is one that certain artists might be surprised by. They would just assume that like maybe the gallery would do all of this. But now with certain changes in economy, such as, for instance, now the petrol in Nigeria going up, what the gallery might have initially have just done without thinking too much of it, like say the artist is residing and having their studio somewhere in the north, and the gallery that will be exhibiting is in Lagos or so. Like these are, things to consider, as well as expenses. You have to discuss with the gallery, the curator, like what am I paying for as an artist? Am I paying for, am I just bringing the works, and are you covering everything? And so, and if that is the situation, like how is this going to reflect? Like, is this going to show in the sale percentage or not? Then, obviously, like as much as art is like a passion, it is a business, right? So you have to have discussions such as, let's say there is an art collector that wants to buy a particular painting, but they have an issue with the price that has been put on the work. You have to have discussions as to, okay, what is the acceptable, discount you're willing to go. And I think, for artists, you need to have like your pen and paper, pulling out, like doing all sorts of calculations so that you know what your take home is, because you for sure know that the curator of the gallery is definitely going to do that. They probably have accountants to help sort out all this, so you're not surprised at the end. So I do feel like usually when it comes to legal agreements, the artists typically do not think as far as they should, right? They just sign, and then they now express, dissatisfaction afterwards. So as an artist, you have to do the work, you have to know what you want, and you have to have whether you think the discussion is going to be a ridiculous one or not is irrelevant. Just bring it up, have these discussions, because at the end of the day, a contract should be between two parties on like the same, standing, at least understanding, trying to be on the same page, sorry. And there are different agreements as well. There's the artist management agreement. So is this going to be, are you going to have like a gallery managing you as an artist, or is this just going to be an exhibition agreement where it is essentially just like you're just exhibiting certain works over a certain period of time with a particular gallery? Or is this going to be, or is this for the curator an agreement for provision of curatorial services? I do have like a client who had to essentially ask us to prepare like an agreement for curatorial services to a very huge institution. I think the biggest institution in Nigeria right now. And, obviously working on this, like there's so many things that like you realize that, wow, this is, everything has to be put down. Every single thing has to be properly like, agreed on. Otherwise, at the end of the day, somebody is going to be upset, or it could even end up in like a lawsuit. I feel like, for sure, there are different things that artists need to consider. And like you probably maybe should have a lawyer friend or a lawyer that you engage to help you properly understand the terms and conditions that you're signing before you sign it.
Thank you, Chinyere. I think a final question for all panelists before we open the floor to our listeners is we've discussed the different models of exhibiting art, and we've also established that all of these models can also, come in one. Can we talk about the pros and cons of the different aspects, say the pay to play model, the one where artists pay, or the one where the artist is not being charged? Are there any disadvantages or advantages of these models we've discussed today?
Are we talking disadvantages to the artist or to the curator or to the gallery?
So you as an artist, you discuss your own point as an artist, from your own point of view as an artist, why curators and the galleries can speak on their own point of view.
Okay. First of all, I want to talk about what I said earlier. Kenny, when you met Bruce, did the first thing, Bruce, the first question I'm sure he did not ask is what exhibitions have you curated before? What did you sell? It was not the first question.
Oh, he did. I'll correct that. He did. And for every single artist that I have worked with, for every single gallery, for every single collectors, for every single institution that I have worked with, that's the number one question they want to know. Who have you worked with? What have you done? So I'll correct that and you can continue with your response. Sorry, I just had to correct that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for having the gallery take care of the financial aspect of the exhibition, yes, it takes a lot of burden off the artist. So the artist is concentrated on creating the works, on expanding his idea, on doing research about the work, whatever he's talking about, whatever theme he's working with. Now, it also means that the artist is going to get a percentage of the return on investment. Whatever it is, the artist is probably getting, it depends on the contract signed, maybe 50% or 60% or 40%, whatever is being agreed upon. Now, the other model where the artist pays everything, looks for the sponsorship and all that, means the artist gets all the money. So the artist decides who he pays. What is he going to pay the curator? What is he going to pay whoever he is going to pay? The other model where both parties decide to come together and say, oh, curator is bringing this, artist is bringing this, let's look for a space and do this. They both have to decide, okay, at the end of the day, what percentage, how are we going to divide these things? Well, what are you spending on creating the works? What are you spending on doing the running around for this project? Know that, like I said before, it's about clear-cut communication. If both parties are open to communicating whatever it is. And there's also one thing I want every artist to do is, after reading every contract or agreement, give it to a lawyer to also read. Then there are lawyers, a lot of us have friends who are lawyers that you can pay a token. So just take 1 hour, go through this and tell me what you think. Is it a good sign? Is it a good idea? Do I delve into this or do I just walk away? Because sometimes some lawyers might make it very, very lengthy that you can't sit down and read everything. They might use some words that you don't understand. They use phrases that you will not understand, and you just sign because you're desperate or you want this to happen. And then you fall into a rabbit hole. So give it to a lawyer. I've had an experience where someone sent a contract. Oh, we'd like to work with you. And I read the contract. I was like, oh, well, I gave it to a friend of mine who is a lawyer. And she told me, don't dare sign this thing. What this means is that you're going to pay this person a certain percentage of every sale you make from your work, whether they make an input or not, anywhere you sell this work. So do not sign this thing. So yes, every artist needs to have a lawyer, it shouldn't be something that we think is far-fetched. You need that input. You need a lawyer to look at every contract that you're going to sign, whether you're writing it or the gallery is writing it or the curator is writing it. A lawyer needs to look at it and decide, okay, this is a good fit, or remove this, add this, or whatever.
Okay, thank you, Promise. Anyone else want to speak before we go on to answer questions from the audience?
Yeah, sorry, Anita. Okay, so you pretty much were asking what we think would be the best method or mode of receiving payments or so.
No
Okay,
payments.
so I think sorry, not receiving payments. Go ahead,
like
sorry.
the exhibition, like what model to go, like whichever model you think. Do you think there are pros and cons associated with them as, say, an artist or a curator or a gallerist?
Okay, so I think that it depends on, like, for the artist, it depends on your, not necessarily your financial capability, but that, as well as if you are an artist that is selling, if that makes sense. I don't want to say popular, because you can be popular and you're not necessarily making sales, right? So I feel like in a situation where you know that you have people that are waiting, around the block for you to create works and sell, right? It might make sense to adopt the I guess where the artist here pays, right? Like you're paying. And I know that this might sound a bit funny, but it might make sense, because you know that at the end of the day, you have people that are going to, like, pretty much, like, buy your work. So it's better for you to, like, agree with your curator a certain fee that would work for you, and know that that is it, that is all. Now, in a situation where you do need your curator to really push your works for you, and maybe you're emerging, but not like emerging in the sense that people like you, but you still need that stamp of approval from, like, a seasoned curator or a seasoned gallery or whatever, then it might be best to adopt the sort of, I guess, gallery, the curator slash artist agree on, like, a split, right? That way the gallery slash curator is incentivized to push you as well, and, like, everybody's working together to, like, try and make that sale happen. But I feel like at the end of the day, you kind of need to be, as an artist, you have to be true to yourself and, like, really know where you are, so that you pick the option that works best for you. The worst thing that you can do as an artist is just incur unnecessary expenses and costs, and maybe agree that you will pay the curator a certain amount, but you're not making money to actually pay the curator. So you're now digging into your own personal savings and, funds. That's my thought on it.
Thank you, Chinyere. Okay, I think we can now. Okay, Kenny, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick one. First of all, I should say to Promise that I didn't intend for my response to you to be snarky. It felt more urgent, and because of the time constraint, I, had to quickly correct, the fact that that you were going about it the wrong way with response to, who and where you're presenting one's portfolio experience to. But to round up, all of everything that I have said today, I feel like, again, this is a conversation for the institutions who sort of help to provide venues for the display of works and the like. So galleries, museums, and every other space there is. And I think if we're looking for a way to mediate, it would be for them to allow for more room for alternate means to raising funding for projects. So if it's a curator who is bringing a project to you, or an artist who is like, oh, I want to display this, body of work in this manner and all of that. You should, and they don't have the means immediately to fund said project. You should be open to finding alternate ways to raising this money. Sometimes the gallery leverages on their own contact, the museum leverages on their own, donors or patrons, and they should be more, open to that. That's like my own take, because you can't ask them to scrape, the whole profit side of their business. It's impossible. I mean, the convener of this platform herself said, as a gallerist, there are specifications for you to, if you want to do something with me, there's this, there's that. So that's the reality. We are in a world and a time where money is like the essential currency of value, and that has to be factored in. So we are not asking for this to be scrapped. We just need more allowance for artists and for people who bring projects, proposals to these spaces to have more audience and more alternatives to raising funds, rather than it coming from their own inexistent pocket. And finally, I think I should also say that the business of art, it's a business that probably exceeds our collective lifetimes. And a lot of times as an artist, or even galleries themselves, they are seeking to, make profit immediately. It's like a full-on venture. Let us see how we can raise money. Where I create 30 works, I'm exhibiting 10 of them, I should be getting XXX amount at the very least. Like, that's the target. But sometimes in your lifetime, you may not realize anything for the work, and it's just what it is. And that's the essence of art itself. That's the nature of art itself. Wherein, as a creator, you may or may not get the full benefit of that one work until you may never get it. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get it. Some other times, it's just something that will not come your way. And that's what makes art what it is. That's what makes art it. So I think artists need to make peace with the fact that, immediate profits may not come. And I think when you make peace with that, we're able to eliminate that hasty approach to exhibitions. Exhibitions, like you said, are meant to, ideally should be, I've created this thing, okay, let me share it with people, or even if it is not sharing it, let them see and, be amused and be, allured by my brilliance and whatever it is, which is the artist's intent for exhibiting said work. It's not to impact you, it's just for them to showcase. For some artists, that's the case, but that's the ideal, for exhibitions. But some people are, okay, I make this 5 works, I'm supposed to pay rent, pay this, pay that, from this set 5 works. It puts you in the part of, people who will bite you, and they will really, really eat your flesh. And then we come back and we're looking to blame curators, for especially independent curators, for charging money that they really deserve. So that's all I have to say. I hope it makes sense.
Thank you, Kenny. We can now go ahead to answer questions. If you have any question, you can raise your hand or drop it in the chat box. Tunde, you can go ahead with your question. Doesn't necessarily have to be a question. It can also be a contribution, comments. I don't know if Tunde, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Hi, sorry. I have a question for Kenny.
Okay, go ahead.
For Bruce Onobrakwe's exhibition, what was the modalities of it? Like, was it a grand kind of exhibition? Did you raise funds? What was the ideal situation? I know you wrote a proposal to get the space, but what the other aspects of the exhibition, how did you go about it? Because for that kind of exhibition, I know it has to be very cost intensive. So how did you manage that and the logistics behind it as well?
So to clarify, is it just the exhibition at Art21?
At Art21, yes. The one at Art21, yes.
Okay, you know, I think amongst all three shows that I had with Bruce, that by far was perhaps the easiest to navigate. And it was nearly stress-free for me and for him as well. Present your proposal, and like I said, this is sort of the standard for really pretty much how shows should be. So you present your proposal and it's accepted. Oh, okay, so how do we realize this? The space brings its own resources. I worked with people in the gallery who helped to, do like, much of the ideation and everything was myself. That's my job. That's everything I'm supposed to do, which is to make the exhibition. But they were also very instrumental in providing like a space to work and perhaps easier access to materials or resources, which they were very, very, really helpful with. They were really helpful with that. And then, yeah, the installation process was their own people. They had a company they worked with and we had them come in. The logistics as well was, this was an independent, person who had his own stuff and were able to get the works from the studio to the space. And after the show, we're able to take the remainder works back to the studio, and then insurance and all of that. So pretty much that's what is space, and most spaces who don't charge entry fees per se, that's what they do. That's what Cocopelli does. I say it today in front of the owner of the space. And my show with them was also, it wasn't even a solo, it was, a group show, and they managed everything. They provided the resources to get the show, the whole materials together, provided materials. The staff were all together and I was the slave pusher because I had them working with me 2 a.m., 3 a.m. installing, which is like regular hours for me to install my exhibitions. But, for some of the people on the team was pretty strange, and they were still, able to work with that. So that was what happened at ATO. That's what happened at Cocopelli as well. And yeah, that's why I'm like that. And pretty much, galleries that I have worked with as a guest curator in it's that's what has happened. And even here, when I brought the retrospective here, that's pretty much what happened. Although the cost of bringing the works here, that was my responsibility, and that took my life savings. And I was also fortunate to have raised money. I went to friends, I went to patrons, and they were able to, give me the as much as they could, and that helped towards, bringing the works here, and some other tidbits that involved mostly logistics. And sending the works back was the space's, the gallery here's responsibility. And yeah, I hope that answers you in a more robust manner.
Yes, that answers it. I want to direct this other question of mine to Sharon. Have you ever worked with a difficult artist before? And if yes, When I mean difficult, an artist who is just laid back, who wants you to do everything. I have, for one, worked with a difficult artist. And when I mean wants you to do everything in terms of logistics, in terms of curating the exhibition, and also all the areas of the exhibition, to be precise. And then when it comes to percentage-wise, the artist wants you to have, let's just say 25%. How do you deal with such an artist?
Okay, so I will, without mentioning names, there are quite a few artists, but I think what saves me, so I can work with anybody. Difficult, easygoing, laid back, I can work with anybody. And like I said, it all starts from the initial sort of conversations. And again, maybe what your objectives are with the exhibition. I think it's always very important. If I find that the artist is not leaning towards the commercial side of the exhibition, what I tend to do is to, I don't want to say cut my losses. So if we're not raising funds from an external body, I try to keep my expenses very, very low, like almost to, barest minimum. So maybe I might give the space for free, or, again, just have some resources that I know that, okay, I can actually let go of these resources without expecting, maybe monetary value back for them or whatever. But I mean, yeah, it's human nature, and again, you're also managing people's expectations and the way they work as well. But like I said, it's in the beginning. You have to sort of nip things in the bud at the beginning. Just really setting out what is expected, and just manage expectations really. So I think maybe for me, where the problems really start is during the exhibition and after the exhibition, to be honest. The lead up to the exhibitions are always very okay. It's what happens after. So maybe we start going into discussions about somebody wanting to collect their work the day after the exhibition is over. Somebody is trying to outsmart the gallery, or divert business elsewhere. All these many things that happen, as opposed to, I never usually have problems leading up to the exhibition. I think I'm able to manage expectations in terms of what is expected and how we're going to present the works. It's during and after that a lot of the problems sort of start. And then maybe I've had people ask me for early payments as well, knowing fully well that there's a period of of collecting monies and just getting accounts together. So they come in. This is another strategy. So I hardly use red dots, just so that I'm not being harassed on the last day of the exhibition. Okay, I've sold X amount of works now. Do I get payment tomorrow? Things like that. And just there's a whole list of things that happen. But like I said, I think you just initially have to try and manage expectations as much as you can. And again, another thing I do, I hardly have verbal conversations about these things. So I would send you an email. The emails will be going back and forth. If you're gonna call me, we have probably put something down on paper, or it's a WhatsApp conversation or a text message, something in writing, but mostly emails. So I hardly have verbal conversation. If you're gonna call me and talking about such things, I would say, can you send me an email? Can you write it down, or it's just about tactics. I can tell you I'm busy, but I'm not really busy because I don't want to have the conversation over the phone. But like I said, before the beginning, it's always very key. They're difficult people. Even I'm a difficult person myself, because at the end of the day, I also want it to happen how I want it to.
All right. My last question is to the artist, because of course it's always it's very important for us to know about your end as well. So, Promise, what do you do if at the end of the exhibition, the stated time for the gallery or the independent curator to remit the money, that's the sales of your work to you, and if the sales do not come to you on time and it's being delayed, how do you handle it as an artist?
Well, asking this question, I think every Nigerian artist has to answer this question because it's a problem. And that's why when you talk, the first thing I wanted to say was, I mean, what was the communication? There should be clear-cut communication. Everything should be written down. Okay, this is what I am doing. This is what the artist is doing. If it's on publicity, this is what I'm doing. This is what the artist is doing. When works are sold, this is when the gallery or the curator is getting paid. 30 days, 40 days, whatever, it should be written down there. So if at the end of the day, the artist is not getting the money, then you start talking. And I also won't understand how an artist, if there's a clear-cut communication, the artist is getting so percent, why would the artist come and say, oh, I want, are you okay? That is not okay. But yes, a lot of, sad to say, a lot of galleries and curators do this thing where they say, oh, monies will be paid after 30 days, and you're asking for your money after 90 days, and you're still running around. Like, what is happening? It is in the contract. You send them the contract, you send them emails and calls and texts, and like I said, it is a problem. And instances where some artists would have to go to the police station to.
How do you, person, the question is to you, has it happened to you before? If it has.
Yes, it has happened to me before. I had to keep calling.
Yeah, so how did you?
I had to keep calling and sending texts and emails and calling. I have had to resort to sending a message to someone who is actually not the curator, because the curator is probably not responding. I have to send to someone who is close to the curator because the curator is not responding. Yes, that is how I went about it. I had to send someone who would talk some sense in quotes to the curator to adhere to the agreement. So
Thanks,
yeah,
Promise.
how I handled it.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Promise. Chinyere, I saw your hand up if you want to speak.
Yeah, so initially,
sorry, Chinyere, before you go ahead, if you have questions, you can raise your hands up or drop it in the comments section. You can go ahead now, Chinyere.
So yeah, initially I wanted to ask Sharon a question, but then maybe I'll ask the two questions right after I'm like responding to Rinke's question about how you treat late payment of you know. So I think that for me as an artist as well, right? I fortunately have been able to like sort of do things by myself and like see firsthand how difficult it is, because the assumption for the artist is that once you've sold within 30 days or so, the art collector would have made payment to the gallery, to the curator, whoever, and then all that's left to be done is just like paying you your money. But that's not how things work, right? Because it takes a long time to follow up with people to make payments, even though they had already said that they were interested in purchasing the artwork, right? And once you go through this, I think that you will have like some understanding on why like payment could be very, very late. It could be well past the 30 or 45-day timeline that was imputed into the contract, right? But then contracts as well also make room for situations where certain clauses are not met, right? But I think the truth of the matter is people don't always pay. Like the art collector might very well want to buy and make payment, but maybe something's come up. God forbid the person's parent might be ill, or maybe business isn't going well, circumstances change, right? And these things would delay payment. So I don't necessarily think, unless the artist knows that the gallery or the curator is purposely has received funds and is purposely not making payments, which is now where it is serious. And I honestly feel like you do need to do your research on the gallery or the curator that you're working with as an artist. You can't be that desperate that you do not know that, oh, this might not be the best fit for me. Because people talk, right? People will talk about how maybe they weren't paid on time with this other artist. So, like you will have an idea. So I think that maybe there are different things to consider, which is why transparency is very important, right? The gallery, the curator, everybody has to be transparent when it comes to sales and all of that. So I wanted to ask you two questions actually, because she was talking about, I guess maybe how some artists are like when everything goes well, but then towards the very ending of after the exhibition, you have artists sort of being funny. You have artists being funny and trying to divert funds and this and that. So I wanted to, I guess, I don't know if you want to talk more about that, explain what you mean. And then also you had mentioned that to sort of deal with certain issues of artists frequently just, badgering you with when am I getting paid, when they think that they've made a sale, you don't put red dots. I don't know, how is that because I feel like most galleries want to put red dots because they want to show that they are a profitable, venture. So I'm curious as to whether you think that, why? I know why, but I don't want to say, is it a good idea without, questioning your logic behind it, but you would want to seem like you're doing well. So not putting red dots there might look like you're not.
I mean, each to their own. There's also a reason why I don't put red dots. So I'm giving you some of my tricks and tips. Sometimes people walk into the space and then they see the red dots. I'm talking from a collector's angle, and they say, oh, this is the work I wanted to buy, but there's a red dot already. It's not necessarily to trick. I usually do this when there's a group exhibition as well. So maybe somebody is selling a lot more than another person, and they're all these, we're humans at the end of the day. You're having a group show, maybe artist A has sold all their works, their red dots there. The works might even be more expensive than other artists' works, and then there's somebody else has only sold one work. Just even, again, people are not going to do the same in a group show, for example, but just to avoid, again, you have to sort of play the market and see how people react. There's that. Whether it works or not for some other people, I don't know, but it's something that I have done, and I've seen it work over and over again. The idea of payments, it's a very, I've been in a position where a collector didn't pay me for a particular work for over a year, and I had said the work was sold. So this was even somebody that I knew, and he had bought works from me previously, but on this particular transaction, he did not pay in full until a year after. Now, to that artist, I had put a red dot. I had even said it was sold. So again, this person was expecting payments. I think we do within 20 days or something like that, or we pay almost immediately. And he was expecting, oh, what is happening here? What is happening here? What is happening here? Eventually, I got so tired of even updating him as to what the collector was saying that I had to fork out that money from my own pocket and give the artist. But what I then found out was I was doing that for many transactions because payments were late. And I'm running a business. It puts me in a very precarious, situation as well, because I haven't received payment, but I paid the artist. What if the collector never pays? What happens then? What do I do? How do I, cut my losses? I don't want to buy the works. yes, I like what I've shown. I'm happy, about what we presented. Maybe I can't afford it, really. So there are all these things that you end up doing just to, again, run your business properly and to just even manage expectations. So I'm not deliberately not putting the red dots because I'm trying to trick the artist or say I've sold 2 works when ideally I've sold like 5 works or something. I mean, you will know when the exhibition is over because we will send you a breakdown of what was sold, what had interest, what we're still expecting monies for. And we also make room for part payments because there are some of our clients that will say to me that, oh, Shema, I'm going to pay 3 times. Is that okay with you and your artist? So in the contract that I send out, there is the option to, I already state those things, and it's one of the things that we have to agree on, before we even start talking about what we're going to show. There's the possibility. Are you open to it? If you're not open to it, then I'm not saying we would never do the exhibition, but then I know, okay, I can't tell my client that there's the option to pay in installments. Again, that has been problematic for me, and I've lost the client, and the client has abused me because of this part payment issue. I couldn't take a part payment. The artist didn't want it, even though it was stated in the agreement. I mean, this was after the exhibition again. Again, like I said, these things sort of they come up after you sign something and then you're going back and forth. I don't think it's in my best interest to break down that relationship with the artist because I want to please the collector. The artist can't wait for 90 days to receive payment, and I must respect that. So again, there are some clauses that will be broken, and that's just the reality, really.
Thank you, Shema. I think we have about 6 minutes left for this panel discussion. If you have any questions, you can also I think we can take 1 or 2 questions, else we'll just conclude this session. Okay, Tunde Bella, you can go ahead.
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Tunde Bella. Very, very nice presentation. I was just wondering if there's I think my contribution will be more like a suggestion. I'm a presenter. I'm the Colos Master of Ceremonies. I'm also a healthcare practitioner. I was going to talk about how it used to work in comedy shows. Comedy used to be like an elite thing where those who pay to go to comedy shows used to be more like elites. But nowadays, with the advent of social media, Instagram especially, and YouTube, there are a lot of people who have come into comedy who have made it really, really big, and most of them have had their they became popular online before going mainstream and having people come to their shows in halls. So I'm thinking, is it something that can be explored in a setting like this where you have people, because when you want to sell, I think it's about building a community, and then eventually that community then turn to customers. Is that something that can be applied in exhibitions? More like you have create a story along your work or your body of art, show it online, i.e. Instagram, TikTok, and things like that. And then you grow followership, and then they eventually become customers who pay for your work. Because having traditional approach to things are great, but I think when it comes to sales, sometimes all these little guys who follow you online, when you bring the monies they put together, sometimes they might even fund exhibitions for you in the near future. I was just wondering if it's something that can work, because we've seen it in comedy, we've seen it in the music industry. I just thought it might be a thought, to ponder about. My name is Tinebela. I want to say thank you for inviting me, Bronke. Thank you.
Thank you, Tunde. I believe artists are already showing their works online and building their community, to show their works and, put it out there. Or if anyone from the panelists want to speak, Promise, you can also, add to this.
Sorry, maybe I should just buttress. Say, there's a word that says, if you build it, they will come. You see, so that what I'm trying to project there is sometimes it might not be actually the venue you use, it is the body of art you create that people will come for rather than just the venue. I think that's what I'm trying to link.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I did mention at some point that art is politics and you have to understand the politics. And yes, there's a growing market for your art online. The only thing is that a lot of the people who will be your followers online are young people. And if you're going to be selling your big original works to them, they might not be able to afford it. So you have to look for a way to sell something they can afford. But there's a big community of young art buyers, people who are doing very big things, selling art online. It exists. It's just for us to tap into it. And I also, like I said, it's politics. Going to art school, getting into gallery is all about mindset. They tell you, oh, this is the best way for you to grow your art. You have to go to this institution, do this, be in a gallery, be in a standard gallery on quote. And a lot of artists are breaking their backs, breaking their neck, trying to fit into this model when there are other models to follow and you still be a successful artist if it's about selling your work. So you're being told that, oh, you can't make prints of your work. It's going to devalue the value. It's going to bring your value down. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. But if what you want is to sell your work, you can do anything and sell your work and make that money. And like I said, there's a big market online. So it's just for us to tap into it. And I did mention that I regret not venturing into this early enough in my career. If I had thought about it, if I had jettisoned a lot of things people I respected said, and just did my thing, I would have been reaping a lot of benefits before now. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Promise. We'll just take one more question and then conclude the session just because of time. iPhone 3, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
That's the...
Hello, my name is Fumi Onide, and I'm a lover of art, and I'm a collector of sorts. And before I ask my question and make my comment, I just want to thank Ronke of Jade Gallery for inviting me. My question is around how artwork is priced. I've been a collector for going on 25 years now. And this is just my opinion that art in Nigeria seems to have become quite commoditized. Okay. And I'm happy that Nigerian art, African art is getting the kind of recognition that it's getting. But from my own perspective, there's just such a strong commercial drive that, I go to exhibitions, I go to all the big exhibitions in Nigeria, I go to all the galleries, and I'm wondering what is informing these prices that I'm seeing. I've followed the fortunes of certain relatively young artists, and at the beginning of their careers, when I bought their works, I saw a passion. I saw raw talent. I saw inspiration. But in some cases, nowadays, that has been replaced by an overriding commercial imperative, such that it feels almost like the artwork is being churned out for profit. So my question is, who and what determines the price of artwork today? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Shell or Kenny, would you like to take this?
I think there are, a number of deciding factors for how works of art are priced. It's no longer the responsibility of the artist alone to say this is how much my work is going to go. And moreover, when you're interacting with spaces that are, in fact, there are spaces that will tell you we take 60, you take 40. As an artist, ideally you have this X amount for your work, but by the time you calculate just how much the other party would be taking from you, you have to increase the pricing of your work to accommodate what they take so that there's still something left for you at the end of the day. So a lot of times it's not even the artist's fault or greed, as I've heard people say, and it's just as a result of all the elements involved. Sometimes people, and a lot of times you meet artists who they are career artists, they are studio artists, that's all they do. So it's commodity. It's they are selling something. They don't have an alternate career, so it has to factor into their living cost. And I know artists who even find it difficult to buy materials because, and these are people who just had big shows, and it's because they didn't factor in all those modalities involved in presenting a show. So at the end of the very successful show that sold almost all the works, they don't have money to buy materials for their next project. So when you consider having been in such positions, the next time you have an opportunity to send out a work, be it as a private sale or via exhibitions or wherever else, you're going to, factor in unforeseen circumstances that may prevail, and you don't want to just be caught in a bind anymore. And I used to think the same thing, but I don't think it's correct to say it's just a Nigerian artist thing. It's everywhere. People put the value for their money and or for their work, and that's it. If you can't buy it, then
No,
I'm sorry.
No. I understand. And like I said, I'm happy that in particular, Nigerian African artists are being paid for their talent, and that has to be so. But it worries me when you say that art is a commodity. I beg to differ. And I think, without being argumentative, I think fundamentally, not just in Nigeria, but generally, that's an issue today. If people in the industry see art, that's God-given creativity that should be appreciated, that should, be a passion for both the artist and collector. It's a pity if we see it as a commodity.
I hear you. I now I'm just going to make an allusion to medicine. Surgeons, I can't go to med school and say I want to become a surgeon today simply because I do not have that skill to, beyond the theoretical aspect. Practical, I can't be a surgeon. But can we now say surgeons who refuse, or cardiologists who refuse to attend to or work with certain people or patients because they do not, or hospitals because they are not, giving them value for what they are worth? They are what do we call them? They are committing some kind of genocide or act of genocide on patients. Because it's a God-given talent.
I'm sorry.
No, I need to.
Sorry.
No, hold on, please.
Sorry.
No, I needed to make that allusion.
Not a useful analogy. That's not a useful analogy. I'm sorry.
It is actually. You call it a God-given talent, and I need to.
No, I think that you misunderstand. I think you misunderstand what I am saying about art. And I don't think that it can be compared in the same way that you're comparing. And my question, you already answered my question about how pricing is determined, and that's fine.
There are a lot
And
of
I
factors,
agree with that. I agree with that, but I disagree with you describing art as a commodity.
It is.
Oh,
it
my
is
dear,
to the
art-
auction houses. If you
Yes,
go to
art is a
Sotheby's,
commodity.
it's a commodity. You don't.
Yes.
It's sad, you know, that's what it's become, but that's the reality. A lot of people like you, great, you know, we don't treat art as commodity, but to the greater market, it's a commodity. And if you don't start looking at it as that, we'll keep on complaining about how art has been, or the artist even has been abused, or they are, you know, someone just, I was chatting with someone in the comment section one day, George, who talked about artists having the short end of the stick. It's because, you know, a lot of people are still on that whole part of, it's a God-given talent, it's this, it's that. You're not looking at it as something that a price has been put on. And so you keep on getting the short end of the stick. So it's you can't, the definition of art, as much as we want to give it, you know, that attribute of and a preternatural essence, it has to change. It's dynamic. It can't be static. It has to move with the determining factors, which is the market. So if the market today describe art as a commodity, you better start looking at it as that. Otherwise, you keep on getting shortchanged. That's the reality. I'm sorry to say, but that's the cold blood truth that you go out and you find. That's what's happening.
Oh, yes, I agree with you, Kenny, 100%. Art is a commodity. So is music, so is fashion, so is film. It's all a commodity because you have to pay for it. The artist, and the truth is this, yes, the artist is creating a work, but if you look at the people that are being paid from that work, you have the curator, you have the gallery, you have the people who are mounting the works, you have the people who are coming to serve drinks, you have the people doing publicity, marketing. It's a long chain. And where are they being paid from? It's the artwork. So yes, it is.
I understand
situation because I think I understand what the question is. The question is,
I've been following
young ones who are just coming up. What happens if the person is just at the beginning of a journey and then all of a sudden a work that should be commanding 250,000 naira, suddenly 1 year down the line is commanding 3 million naira? What do you do about an artist who is just trying to discover his or herself, and then at the end of the day, this artist is just at the beginning of his career, and all of a sudden, a work that shouldn't be valued up to 450,000 naira is suddenly at 3 million naira? How do you address that situation?
I'd like to say that,
thank you, Ronke, because this is I've had this discussion with Ronke several times, because like I said, I've been collecting art for like 25 years, and it shocks me. I don't want to mention the name, but I go to a certain very large art exhibition, and you see the work of an unknown 24-year-old being priced the same as a Bruce. And I think, what's going on here? You see my point about being, so when I say a commodity, I'm not meaning that people shouldn't be paid for their effort. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be remunerated for the value chain down the line that goes to presenting their work. That's not my point. My point is, where does passion start and commercialization end? So for me now, I'm passionate about art, and I see this artwork from a very young person. This is the first, you know, they've only exhibited a few times. They're not known, and I think I know quite a few names, and they're being priced close to a Bruce or close to another established name. So that is the point I am making. I'm not suggesting that people should not, the artwork shouldn't capture the whole value chain that it takes to get it to where it is.
Thank you. Does anyone want to?
I'd like to contribute to that, but please
Okay.
let me just let other people speak. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Does anyone else want to speak? I know I can see Edusa's hand up. You can go ahead before Shane goes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I've attended an unpaid for school this evening. It's quite interesting to hear from the collector's side. And I think for the curators who are here and those of us artists who are here, they should be very instructive, because usually the narrative between the traditional and the modern school, stir up all sorts of arguments. But because I can speak for myself, the position I've taken is I want to stay away from headaches or hypertension, because I believe that we can all coexist. Last time I went back some years back to check the new definition of fine art, I realized that it's been democratized. And unfortunately, some of the core values that makes a fine artist have been a kind of mellowed down to accommodate all sorts of creative genre. So the point now is, it takes, I think we are now looking at products on different shelves. And I figure that everyone is targeted towards the audience that appreciate or will want to have those things as collection. The issue that just came up on this platform is going to be possibly another idea for Jade or Ronke to get on in the background or set up another platform for discussion. Essentially, we also pray as Africans. Now, just to touch on the side of pricing, why I'm not bothered about it. We also pray as Africans, especially for the few bright ones, that our children will become, and I think the collector here agrees with that, just as the curators. But we must be careful, because in our own community as a people, we don't have the same structures like the Oyimbos. And I think that's where the cause for worry or cause for concern arises. So I just want us to take it, sip it in, we can brew over it, and maybe it will help us also organize our models. But what is important is that we must admit that we have challenges. That's just what I just wanted to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edosa, for your contribution. Shane, you can go ahead.
I think I'll just keep it brief, or maybe we should just have another session about pricing. I think it's very unfair to sort of pigeonhole and peg younger artists. I think I said this at the beginning. You could be an emerging artist, and what you're amassing, you may have gone to Slade for your undergrad, your postgrad. That does not mean that you cannot come out of art school and be priced more than somebody who has been in the industry for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. I think, it's beyond the time. I'm a lawyer as well, and I would hate for anybody to say, oh, you just finished law school, you're a baby lawyer, you're this, you're that. There's some very talented lawyers who have more experience and have worked on bigger transactions than someone that has been practicing for many, many years. I don't think it's fair to just generalize and say, this person came out of art school last year and now they're selling for $5,000 and $10,000. There are arts, there are exhibitions tailored to art school leavers who have just finished art school, and sometimes the prices are rocket prices. Yes, they might, fall within a certain range, but you'd walk into such exhibitions and find that, oh, this person is more expensive than, I don't know, whoever it is that, has been practicing here for a number of years. Some people go into auction very early on. Maybe let's use Amako, for example. Look at what happened to his prices when he entered into auction. There's no way he would ever sell at the previous prices. I think the worry is when we start seeing artists who haven't improved their career over a period of time, and then all of a sudden the prices are being doubled and taken to places where ordinarily they wouldn't be by merit, or the kind of works they're doing, or even demand as well. So market demand as well is key, and trends. I know artists who started off painting, I don't know, maybe still life, and then all of a sudden in the black body era, they started painting black bodies, and you started charging, I don't know, 10,000, 15,000, as opposed to 200K if they painted a mother and child, So I think we need to sit and really look at these things properly, and have like a more open mind. So yeah, the artists who don't even have up to 10 years, and I know they're selling in the hundreds of thousands of pounds, as opposed to a Bruce, or even if they're toe to toe with even the Grillo. Yeah. So I just wanted to contribute that, please.
Thank you, Sharon, for sharing your own point of view. I can see a hand up. Does anyone still want to speak? I think is also item 3. Okay. I think no further questions. In conclusion to today's topic of discussion, if curators should be paid curatorial fees, I think we've come to a conclusion that curators should be paid their curatorial fees. However, institutions should also endeavor to make their spaces available or accessible to artists and independent curators. At this juncture, we would end this call. We have recorded this session, and if you need it, we'll send it to you. Please endeavor to follow us at the Jade Art Collectives on Instagram, and check out our websites where we have archived some of our online exhibitions at www.thejadeart.com. Thank you everyone for sharing your time with us this evening, and goodbye.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
We need a part 2.
We'll also yes, we'll schedule subsequent discussion on this topic, and hopefully to also be engaging as this one we just had.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.